Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from AllOffroad. I hope you guys are well. Today's video will be a little bit different because it has nothing to do with four-wheel driving, but everything to do with two-wheel driving. I will give you my take on the Engwe Engine PRO off-road electrical push bike. In comparison to quite a few other reviews I have watched about that bike, I will give you the pros, but also the cons, and I will also address the big elephant in the room, and that is the legality in Australia, but in particular also to New South Wales. You may be wondering how I review an off-road e-bike, which has very little to do with camping and four-wheel driving. I mean, it sort of has, but more on the fringes. Very simple. Every week I receive numerous requests for items to be reviewed, mainly from companies in China, and really the products range from coat hangers to special sunglasses to cosmetic stuff to food bowls, crazy stuff. Most of them right away go into spam and are deleted. However, from time to time something catches my attention, and the email from Engwe did, because off-road e-bike, I thought that could be interesting, especially as I have an e-bike in the back of my mind for quite some time. I haven't actioned on it, but I have looked at a few in stores and so on, and was pondering whether that would be something I would use and I'm interested in. So when Engwe asked me whether I would like to review their off-road bike, and they agreed to my terms, I thought that is a good opportunity for me, and here I am after having owned the bike for nearly 5 months and having tested it on multiple occasions. Just to clarify, even though I have been exposed to push bikes most of my life, I'm no bike aficionado, and this is a layman's review. So let's get into it. So let's have a look at the features of the Engwe Engine PRO. It is a foldable off-road allo-frame e-bike with a 750 watt direct driven hub motor, which has 1000 watt of peak output. It runs on a 48 volt 16 amp hour lithium battery. It has 20 by 4 inch fat tires on mag wheels. The reach is around 50 to 60 kilometers, but that varies depending on the mode and usage. The load capacity is 150 kilogram. It has a regenerative motor, but I will go into a bit later why it doesn't really matter that much. It has an 8-gear Shimano shifter, adjustable and lockable dual suspension. Actually, only the front suspension is adjustable, not the rear suspension. It has 160mm front and rear hydraulic disc brakes. It has an automatic front and rear lamp. The rear is also reflective, so if the lamp is not working for whatever reason, it still reflects light which shines on it. And quite neat, it also acts as a brake light if you brake. It has a solid rear rack with a good load capacity. It has full mudguards, so they keep you pretty clean even in wet weather. It has an adjustable handlebar and seat, which can be made tall enough for someone my size. The weight of the bike is around 35 kilogram, so it is not very light. It also has a decent sized, good readable LED display, which shows you speed, battery, trip distance, mode, and also allows you to change many settings of the bike in the preferences. I have been testing this bike now for a few months and have taken it on and off-road trips, so let me give you my take on it. Let's first have a look at the pros. So let's talk about the look. I think for a folding bike it does look quite good, and it also has a pretty good feature set for the price. As I said, it's a folding bike, so let me show you how easy or not it is to fold the bike and store it in the back of a Toyota Corolla. You can also fold the pedals down, which I didn't need to do, but here is how that works. That's it. Let me also quickly show you how easy it is to unfold the bike again. I definitely like the folding feature, especially for an all-round cruiser, because otherwise I would have never gotten that bike into the Corolla. The dual suspension does a pretty good job smoothing out some of the bumps on this track. However, it definitely is not a high-end suspension, and I think the front suspension is spring-based and not air or oil-based. The dual hydraulic disc brakes are on the smaller side with only a 160mm disc, but they do work well and I never felt unsafe with the braking performance.
Now we have to go down.
I never did a full range test and I explain later why not in the city. However, after 25 kilometers of riding, I still had 60% battery left. So I think you get definitely 50 kilometers out of the battery. And this was on mixed terrain on an off-road with quite a few hills.
But that is fast for that bike. But the brakes are pretty good.
I really like that the bike has front and rear lights, including a brake light. The 750 watt motor is pretty strong and I managed to get the bike up to 50 kilometers per hour. The 8-gear Shimano shifter shifts very well. I also like the LED display, it's good visible even in sunlight. While I'm only 90 kilograms light, I think 150 kilogram load capacity is good, and it also means you could transport something on the back carrier, which is quite sturdy. While it is sold as an off-road bike, I think we all understand that this is more of a marketing gimmick. I have taken it on some mildly technical terrain, but very quickly reached the limits of its off-road capabilities and needed to jump off and push.
We are in off-road. Oh, goes by itself. Then the track gets better.
The foldable and low frame design combined with small tires make it quite hard to operate the bike in more technical terrain. But on easier fire trails or just a little rough terrain, the bike handles very well and is a lot of fun to ride. The bike is pretty darn fast and I did reach over 50 kilometers per hour. However, at this speed with small fat tires, it starts to feel a little unstable and you don't want to encounter any bigger potholes.
It doesn't, it becomes pretty wobbly.
As part of my research, I also watch other content creators' reviews. And in regards to the Engwe Engine PRO, there are quite a few out there. But I noticed that hardly anyone mentions anything of the downsides. So either they don't want to upset the apple cart and want to keep the company who provides them with gear happy, or they don't really look into the details. Or the third option is that I just had a bike which had more issues, but I can certainly see quite a few things which I would like to see improved in a future version. So let's have a look into that. So let's start with the first thing, and that are the brake levers. They actually operate exactly the opposite than any other bike I know. Usually the left lever operates a rear brake and the right lever operates a front brake. However, with the Engwe Engine PRO, that's exactly the opposite. And if you don't check that out before you ride, that can really send you over the handlebar or make the rear brake out on loose road. So that is something to keep in mind. I don't think the bike really was designed with that rim size and tire size in mind, because the tolerances on the bike for these fat tires are far too narrow. For instance,
These may be a little hard to see, but you see already here marks on the tire, and that is actually from the chain touching the tire. Again, I don't think the bike really was designed for such a wide tire because it touches. Also, if you see here at the cassette, there is not that much room really to the rim.
So when you ride the bike, the chain obviously has some movement and it does touch the tire and leave marks. Look, in the past 3 months now, it hasn't had a crazy result, but I also haven't driven hundreds of kilometers. So I think over time that certainly will wear the tire down. The same issue is with the front mudguard. There is hardly any room between the mudguard and the tire, and as a result the tire actually does contact the mudguard and you have a funny noise which you probably can hear when I ride it. The bike has an aluminium frame and a very solid appearance. Surprisingly, it is quite heavy though, and with around 35 kg, not everyone will find it easy to get it in or out of a car.
Another issue here is the cable routing. As you can see, this pretty much touches a shock, which has a bit of movement in, so over time this will become an issue here.
The cables also partially obstruct the keyhole where you have to insert the key, so you always have to push them a little bit aside to get the key in or out. The pedal assist has quite a bit of lag and that caught me out a few times. So when you start pedaling, sometimes you have to pedal 1 or 2 pedals and then the power comes on. It also doesn't come on gently, but it really kicks in.
The power comes on very suddenly. It's like a turbo. There's nothing gracious about it. It definitely accelerates from time to time, a bit unexpected. It keeps on driving without a pedal press.
And even more worrisome on a few occasions, it doesn't stop immediately when you stop pedaling. So especially when driving little technical stuff, I stop pedaling, I assume the power stops, but it doesn't. It keeps on driving and that can catch you off guard and definitely something to keep in mind. It also has a cruise control feature where, for example, you use the throttle, you get up to a speed, and then it just stays on that speed until you hit the brakes. Again, I found that a little bit unpredictable. Sometimes it went on when I didn't expect it. It just keeps on driving. Even though I don't pedal, I don't have the accelerator pressed anymore. It quite often, it just keeps on going. Which, if you do a little bit of off-road here, what I do, is a little bit dangerous, I reckon. However, the good thing is that you can easily disable that in the settings. Fairly simple. You just go to cruise control, press the I button, and then you can control on and off. I leave it off, confirm again, and confirm, and we back out. My rear tire from factory had a slow leak, so that needed to be fixed. And I don't know whether that's coincidental, but I watched one other review from a guy who also mentioned that he had an issue with his rear tire. Look, could be purely incidental. I just found it interesting that both of us had issues with the rear tire just coming out of the factory. While it is advertised as an off-road bike, I certainly would not classify it a proper off-road bike. I have driven some little technical terrain with it, but that is probably as hard as I would go with the bike.
I may have bitten off a bit too much here for the bike. But you know, we are in off-road.
So I wouldn't class it as an off-road bike, but it's more an all-round bike which can do a little bit of fire trails and here and there a little obstacle. Not a proper off-road e-bike, that's for sure. Let's have a chat about the regenerative braking. The idea itself, I think it's great. It means that every time you brake or you're going down long hill descents, the engine will recover some of the energy and feed it back into the battery. But in practice, I don't think it really does too much in case of the Engwe Engine PRO. You need to be using no pedal assist, so it won't put anything in when you pedal. You need to leave your feet off the pedal, and then you need to be riding faster than 20 kilometers per hour. And yeah, in all my riding, I don't think it makes much difference, unless you have maybe a 4 or 5 kilometer long downward slope where that could make a difference. I think for general day-to-day driving, it doesn't really need to be mentioned. So let's now address the big elephant in the room, which is the legality of these kind of e-bikes in Australia and in particular in New South Wales. I have to admit that I didn't look into the legality here at all in New South Wales or in Australia. I have seen many people riding the e-bikes everywhere. I have seen many people riding e-scooters. I've been in stores like JB Hi-Fi where you can get all kind of bikes and scooters, and I didn't really think too much about it. However, when I rode the Engwe bike for a few weeks, a friend of mine saw the bike, came over and said, "Hey, that's illegal, you can't really ride that bike." And yeah, I was a little bit flabbergasted. I started then to look into the New South Wales regulations for e-bikes, and yeah, they are not too kind. So it turns out that any e-bike over 250 watt, and the Engwe Engine PRO has 750 watts, is pretty much illegal in New South Wales or Australia. On top of that, under the New South Wales regulations, the 250 watt output must be progressively reduced as the bike gets faster. Any output must stop as soon as you take the foot off the pedal. And also, no power can be delivered if you ride above 25 kilometers per hour. That means anything faster than 25 kilometers per hour needs to be coming from your legs and not from the motor. So if we take that all into consideration, the Engwe Engine PRO does definitely not comply with the New South Wales regulations and won't be legal to ride on the road. Also, no e-bike can have a hand throttle. It must always be pedal assist. That means the power can only come on when you pedal and not via hand throttle. While theoretically you could get around a few of that things with the Engine PRO, because for example I could disable the hand throttle. Via the settings I can limit the speed to, for example, 25 kilometers per hour, which I think is also the limit here. However, it has 750 watt. As far as I know, that is just not allowed. Is that a good regulation? I don't think so, and I personally think it's behind the times a bit, and I think it will be very difficult to really enforce that. However, I did a little bit of research then in regards to fines and how that is enforced, and I found this new snippet. Let me share that with you.
A CBD blitz with some big hits. This rider tackled by police as he rode down George Street. He was cuffed, accused of avoiding officers patrolling for a legal e-bike. Not every hit was physical, some hurt the hip pocket too.
Giving you one of the possible fines. There's thousands of dollars worth of fines, okay?
Caught for the second time in 2 months, there was no warning for this worker and his banned bike.
$704 fine, that must hurt. Yeah, it will be hard.
I don't really want to get into arguments whether that are justified or good rules. In my book, I don't think they are. I have seen Develop Australia over the past 25 years more and more in a nanny state where more and more gets regulated. And yeah, in my book, I don't like that much. However, any motorized vehicle can be dangerous. And yeah, if you don't use common sense, you know, it can go wrong. And there have been incidents with bikes and scooters where people have died. But yeah, as sad as that is for the individual, it
is part of life. You know, people die every day on car accidents, in all sorts of accidents. It is just part of living. It's up to you to do that responsibly, to have a proper risk management.
The issue is made more confusing as you can freely purchase illegal e-bikes and scooters from major retailers and online outlets with little requirements to state the rules.
The fact is that the Engwe Engine PRO is not legal to ride on New South Wales roads. So if you don't care, that is perfectly fine with me. That is your choice. However, if you want a road legal bike, it wouldn't be the right bike for you. So what is my final verdict of the bike? All the legality issues aside, I think it is a great fun bike. I really enjoy riding it. I think it is more an all-round cruiser than an off-road bike. But hey, if you have a little bit of bumpy terrain ahead, if you need to take some gravel road or some fire trail, it certainly can handle that. It brakes very well. I think it looks very nice. And price-wise, I think it's good value for money. Engwe gave me a referral link, so if you want to purchase a bike, there is a link in the description, and I think I get a little kickback. To be honest, I haven't looked into it. So that's it for the review of the Engwe Engine PRO. If you find my reviews and tips useful, I would greatly appreciate if you could share, like and subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, consider heading over to Patreon or buy me a coffee. And with the equivalent of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can really help me to stay independent and create these noble reviews for you. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you along the tracks.